What is the Nika Fruit truly capable of? I can't be the only one who's wondering this. Like, yeah, Luffy has become an Emperor of the Sea, but according to Imu, as we know, he's still nothing compared to the power of his predecessor. Which then kind of begs the question, how strong was Joy Boy exactly then? Imu was ready to throw down with Gear 5, like refight Joy Boy it seems, but he just no-diffed Luffy here. Imu was genuinely disappointed. Luffy could not use the full abilities of his fruit on a level anywhere even close to what Joy Boy apparently was capable of. So what I want to try and figure out with you today is, what exactly was it then that set Joy Boy apart from Luffy's level right now, which, you know, up until now has seemed crazy, but apparently is nothing? What made Joy Boy that guy? And how was he able to use the Nika Fruit in ways that Luffy hasn't even dreamed of yet? Now, for starters, based on what we've learned recently in the manga, it really seems like Joy Boy must have somehow mastered the ability to turn imagination into reality, right? Transforming his own body truly without any limitation, conjuring any object that he desired, and warping the world itself as he pleased. We haven't seen that yet expressively, but that's kind of what everything that we've seen with Luffy's power so far and everything that Imu is able to do seems to be hinting at, right? I hope that you would agree with that. And so that's now the new benchmark that Luffy's gonna have to reach and even surpass at some point if he's gonna put Imu down for good, or I guess whatever the actual end goal of One Piece is here. Again, as you know, I'm not 100% sure that defeating Imu is actually what needs to be done to save the world, but that's a different video. This video is answering the question, just how strong was Joy Boy and what were his powers? Because again, right now, Imu is considering Luffy super weak. You know, the man who defeated the world's strongest creature, the man who is a Joy Boy successor, and despite all the crazy power-ups that Luffy has been getting in, you know, in universe time a couple of months, like 2 or so since the time skip, Imu still defeated him so easily, looking disappointed, saying that he's nothing compared to his old rival. But if that's the case, what could Joy Boy possibly do that's even crazier than Gear 5? Like, with chapter 1188 in mind and 89 on the way, is Joy Boy just top 1 in the universe now? I mean, that was already a pretty safe call at this point based on everything we already know about the fruit and everything. Like, I don't know how you feel. Maybe Davy D. Jones is at that level, but we know nothing about him. But, you know, Rocks drew a comparison between the two. Maybe Emo is at Joy Boy's level since he ultimately somehow won the war and, you know, like, I mean, Joy Boy did get defeated. Maybe the OG Nika, before there were devil fruits, was actually the real guy and was like on a completely different level. But based on all the available information and characters that we don't really speculate about, I don't think that anyone has ever thrown down like the first pirate in history has done it before. And it's a little bit weird. You probably feel the same way, but at this point, I'm actually a little bit shocked that Joy Boy's side somehow managed to even lose during the Void Century, because even going up against the devil, his side was absolutely stacked. And kind of from the way that Imu talks about Joy Boy again, it's kind of, you kind of get the feeling that, you know, he revered Joy Boy to a certain degree, or at the very least really respected his power. Like, that man was from this technologically advanced great kingdom. He had certified big boy heavy hitters like Zunisha and Emeth fighting at his side. He had the combined powers of countries like Wano, Elbaph, and Fishman Island. I'm pretty sure he had at least 1, more likely 2, possibly 3 ancient weapons, since Vegapunk had confirmed that it was actually partly Joy Boy who ensured that they were preserved for the future. He had the voice of all things to talk to Zunisha and Emeth. He had unparalleled haki, unlike anything we've ever before, with the giants being like, this haki blast might be stronger than yours, Shanksy boy, which is kind of insane. But again, to beat a devil like Imu, it also takes a real god, so I don't think it comes down to any of those previous factors at all. It wasn't until Luffy turned on Gear 5 at all in general that Imu even recognized him as potentially being Joy Boy, before then of course very quickly deciding that nope, actually was a mistake. Luffy is just not him yet, despite the resemblance, being heartbroken it seems. Like, Imu is like literally like, dude, I had high expectations here, what are you doing? Which is like so crushing, I personally think, for Luffy. So I think a very fair assumption to make at this point is that Imu's ancient enemy, rival, whatever they were, was not only someone who just ate the Sun God Nika fruit and awakened it. No, Joy Boy was someone who perfected the fruit and used it to its max. And I do feel like above all other abilities, it was the devil fruit, the Nika fruit, and its true power that Emu is actually fearing the most. After all, if you think about it, Rocksteady Zebek's master plan to remove Emu from power wasn't about building up his Conqueror's Haki to crazy levels, it was all about finding some very specific legendary ancient devil fruits like the Nidhogg fruit. And I kind of have to imagine that the plan was to combine those fruits' power or like have them, combo work in some way to exploit one of Emus's weaknesses that we don't really know about yet, but that he clearly has since he's bleeding from the mouth. That's like another thing, like very quick side rant here, sorry to like take away from the video, but can we all agree that it's kind of cool but also surprising that despite Emu throwing out like basically any ability that he wants to have in the story, like summoning powerful weapons, crazy omen, crazy haki, Oda still presents him in a way that makes him look like fairly beatable? Like, Emu doesn't come across as this, like, being that comes down and is just invulnerable and, you have to collect the 9 pirate balls to, like, wish to defeat him. No, like, Emu is broken. He's, like, a god-level character, but he, like, is presented in, like, a vulnerable, beatable way. Does that make sense? I think it's very good. I think it's a great thing, but I was very surprised to see that. Anyways, rant over. While Zebek seems to have not actually known about the Nika fruit or not really cared about it, I'm kind of feeling like the Nika fruit must be one of those key devil fruits to beating the king of the world. It would have been super ironic, of course, if we learned that even if Rox had completed his objective, it still wouldn't have been enough because he was just missing this crucial piece of the puzzle, the Sun God Nika fruit, and if beating Emu was just about training up your haki to like crazy Shanks Joyboy levels or the voice of all things, then Emu and every other character who was around during the Void Century wouldn't be making such a big deal about Luffy awakening this specific devil fruit, right? Also, don't forget that the world government specifically tried to kill him on Onigashima so that he could not awaken the Nika fruit. Now this, of course, backfired horribly, of course, since it turns out that dying was the thing that caused him to awaken Jesus style, right? Like turning into a god by dying, but the Gorosei were not happy about Luffy unlocking his true powers at all. Clearly, there is a very core reason that they've been trying to hunt down this very specific fruit for the past 800 years, ever since Joyboy presumably died, and it probably comes down to Emu not wanting anyone to be able to use this particular power ever again, most likely against him, or maybe he's just also kind of waiting for the right guy. But the question here is, how? Right? Because right now, let's not kid ourselves, Emu's looking kind of unstoppable and just is kind of like dog walking Gear 5 Luffy that, the form that Luffy so proudly declared to be his peak. Gotta find a different peak, my friends. So what kind of unbelievable power, like what secrets about the devil fruit was Joyboy able to wield that Luffy just doesn't know about? And how does that tell us what Luffy might be going to be able to do once he actually finally reaches his fruit's true potential and even learns about what it's possible to do with it anyways? Because it's just a fact that Luffy has only scratched the surface of his devil fruit, not to say that he technically has just been misusing it ever since he's gotten it, thinking that it did something completely different. The Nika fruit's inherent power at least seems to be to turn imagination into reality. That's kind of based on everything we've seen so far, though Oda has actually not gone out and straight up confirmed this. Like, I see a lot of people, including in my team, assuming that that's just a fact, but technically we don't really know what the core function of Nika's abilities actually are, nor what they have to do with the sun. But even if we do know that, the Nika fruit does seem to have the ability in some way, shape, or form to turn, your fantasies or your imagination into reality, we don't know what that means, what the true limits of it are, or what even additionally might be possible with the fruit. Just as an example, if Luffy can summon a baseball bat, can Luffy summon a meteor? Can Luffy, just imagine an island to, lift out of the ocean and put it somewhere? You know what I mean? Can you just imagine that the entire planet squishes into, a flat Earth kind of situation? You get what I'm saying? What are the limits? Are there rules to this ability or are there not? And honestly, whatever its true power might be, Joyboy, it seems like he could access it fully. So let's run down what Luffy can currently do, and then try to bring this power set to its logical conclusion to figure out just how busted Joy Boy might have been with this fruit, and what Luffy might be able to do with it by the end of the series, if he ever wants to bring the new dawn. And I want to start here by looking at the Nika Fruit's ability to transform its user. Now, Luffy's kind of been on the trend of transforming ever since Gear 4, with forms like Bounceman and Snake Man, though there is like a weird combination with obviously like shaping his rubber body with Haki as well, so it's kind of hard to say how much of that would actually be the Nika Fruit. But now, Gear 5 seems to be getting its very own transformations, and I imagine that Joy Boy utilized some similar power, but to an even greater effect. Let's just look at Luffy's latest technique before he got stabbed, Gomu Gomu no Majin, Gomu Gomu Genie, right? Did you have Luffy turning into a magical genie on your Elbaph bingo card? Because I did. Oh, no, actually I didn't. I had Usopp getting a crazy power-up, which hasn't happened yet. Weird. Now, as you know, I've also speculated about Gear 5's true powers so many times at this point, and with 1,000 guesses, I would have never been able to throw out Genie mode as a possibility here. But I gotta say, I kinda dig the Genie, even though it didn't get to do all that much before Imu just put an end to it immediately. The more I'm thinking about it now, the more it's actually kind of perfect. You see, the Sun God Nika Fruit is a God Fruit, so it kind of makes sense that his first ever new transformation in this form would be into a type of divine being, a genie. And you kind of have to imagine that Joy Boy also put the mythical in his mythical zone by utilizing some similar, but probably way stronger godlike forms. But also to figure out what those might have been, I do want to think about the genie on a thematic level though, because while it seems totally random and kind of out of field at first glance, I was definitely taken by surprise really hard. It actually works surprisingly well once you actually think about it, because only very few supernatural beings are more tied to the idea of liberation and like wishing anything into existence than a genie. They spend their entire existence trapped within a lamp or a bottle and can only use their power once they're actually set free. And what is that power? Exactly, granting wishes. Quite literally, it's turning imagination into reality, which is exactly Gear 5's power as far as we understand it right now. Like, it really makes me wish that we'd gotten to see him do something else before getting fully impaled. Maybe we'll get that in the upcoming chapters, though I kind of hope that Luffy stays down, but hey, when you watch this video, you might already know more than me. As for my other two wishes though, I kind of wish that you'd go check out the Ohara Patreon for some sweet bonus content, artwork, and early chapter reactions. This genie, though, makes me wonder about what other transformations we'll get to see from Luffy as well, potentially, because if Gear 5 follows like the same pattern as Gear 4, or at least a similar one, then we'll probably get to see more of this divine, godly transformation theme going on. As you remember, Gear 4 had 3 unique forms, Bounceman, Tankman, and Snakeman, and they kind of seem to be very much linked to his training on Rusgaina, with different attacks named on the different animals that he fought there, like Reno Schneider and the big Kong gun, right? But now, we've already seen this shift towards other godly attack names. I mean, most of the standard Gear 5 attacks are just Dawn in front of an older technique, but there's also Thor rifle imbued with electricity and named for the Norse god of thunder, and the technique that he used to take out Kaido was the Bajrang gun, coming from an alternate name for Hanuman, the monkey god. Yeah, there's a bit of a theme here. So what other beings do I think that Luffy, or potentially Joy Boy before him, could potentially turn into? Now, that question of course kind of got me thinking about some other deities that are tied to this concept of imprisonment and liberation, just like a genie is. One hilarious option of a god that spent his time imprisoned and was set free would be Gomu Gomu no Loki. Now, I don't think this would be Luffy's final form here, but I do think it would be incredibly funny if one of Luffy's attacks was turning into a bad impression of his new BFF here. Maybe he could turn his arm into a big hammer or something. I would also love a named attack called Ragnarok, since, you know, it would kind of play on the Red Hawk, Red Rock progression too. And if Joy Boy had a form based on a Norse deity with a technique called Ragnarok, it would kind of make sense why the Elbaphian mythology links Nika to the idea of destruction just as much as liberation, and why Loki thinks that he can bring Ragnarok as the sun god. That might just be one of the ultimate attacks that Luffy or the Nika Fruit has in store. That being said, there are of course also a lot of fantastic options from Greek mythology. There's like the serpentine creature Typhon, who was imprisoned by the gods. Typhon is like the serpentine father of all monsters thing that could almost be like an evolution of Snake Man. And since that beast is also associated with lightning and fire, it seems kind of right in line with the elemental attacks that Luffy's been using lately. But moving a little bit in a different direction, I've also been wondering lately if Luffy's going to be able to pull off some sort of time travel, time bending thing, like potentially even going back in time to just, become Joy Boy literally. That's like one of the big theories, right? That Luffy is Joy Boy. We made a whole video about that idea right here. But imagine how sick it would be for Luffy to bust out the Gomu Gomu no Kronos, right? Like the Titan of Time who was imprisoned in Tartarus, the underworld, the abyss, right? And I gotta say, adding time manipulation to Luffy's power set would definitely, help him bring up similar to Imu's level, but I don't really think that this is a type of power that Joy Boy had, unless he also managed to like skip ahead in time Toki style and is just chilling and waiting at Laugh Tale. But I think the thing, I really like the idea of Joy Boy still being alive, but at the same time, then how would Luffy have his devil fruit? So there's like some issues there, but I still wouldn't rule it out. Going back to transformations though, of all the Greek mythology deities that I think would be most interesting, and the sickest one would be Gomu Gomu no Prometheus. The Greek titan that stole fire from the gods and gave it to humanity, already mirroring, of course, the sun god and the forbidden sun that was given to humanity and connected to the gods in the Harley text anyways. There's just one big problem with this idea. There's already a Prometheus in One Piece, of course, and that's one of Big Mom's homies. Now, of course, there was also a very small side character in Fishman Island, also named Nika. Yeah, actually there was, so maybe that's not a big deal. And also, we know that both Big Mom and Kaido knew a lot more about the true history than they let on originally. Kaido's whole thing was bringing about Joy Boy. Big Mom knew a lot of things as well, she had a lot of information and a lot of knowledge, so maybe she named her homies after these ancient beings as well. But either way, I don't think that Luffy's predecessor necessarily turned into this godly figure from Greek mythology, because figures like the rain god Zaza or the other gods that we know about aren't necessarily borrowed from real-world mythology at all. So I think there's a good chance, at least, that Joy Boy's divine transformation would have been turning into the One Piece's world god of freedom and liberation, Nika himself. Boy! Wait, Manu, what? Isn't Gear 5 already turning into Nika? Isn't just eating the fruit you turning into Nika? Well, I have had a feeling that Luffy's awakening is still kind of incomplete, right? This all comes back to what Rob Lucci said about Zone Fruit Awakenings a little while back. They're only possible when the spirit of the fruit and the spirit of the user are in perfect alignment. And let's not forget that the fruit is not the Joy Boy fruit, it is the Nika fruit, which should turn the human who eats the fruit into the Sun God Nika. So it seems like Nika itself, the literal god, might reside within the fruit somewhere in its essence or spirit or as a devil, and while Luffy has aligned with it enough to bring out Gear 5 and kind of the first stage, he might not be totally in sync with it quite yet. However, Joy Boy was probably 100% dialed into that Nika vibe, and if Luffy can reach a state of complete freedom, completely aligning with the ideology of that real god, then he might finally be able to unleash the truly godlike powers dormant inside of the fruit. Now, whether that means that this is something that's exclusive to the Nika fruit, or whether that means that there's just an additional step after awakening for any devil fruit user, I don't know. I feel like both are possible. As for what it actually means turning into Nika though, in terms of a transformation, I'd probably say it's shapeshifting on a level that's just totally limitless basically. Though kind of with Luffy's fruit overall, everything we see already, it's a little bit hard, right, to figure out how that's necessarily different from what he's already doing. I mean, he just turned into a genie. Is there necessarily anything that he can't transform into right now? If he wanted to turn into the Nidhogg, could Luffy do that right now? Let me know how you feel about that. Let me know in the comments, actually. Do you think Luffy can turn into the Nidhogg if he wanted to right now? But beyond that, I'm also kind of thinking more in terms of a free-form, fluid transformation, where instead of activating a specific transformation that's just locked in, all the parts of Luffy's body might just be able to transform independently and like super quickly so that an opponent won't even know what's happening. It's kind of the idea of a zone transformation just extended to the most extreme possible version of it. It would like effectively be as though Luffy had eaten every zone fruit ever because he'd be able to just tap into any form at will. Maybe not even zone fruits, because Luffy like just seems to be able to create weapons like the weapon fruit and create lightning like Enel and like grab it out of the sky and fire, right? Which, like, again, come to think of it, don't you feel like it's a lot similar to like what Imu's been doing with his devil fruit power? Very strange. Like, they both kind of seem to have the potential to just imitate any other devil fruit in existence. And from everything that we've seen right now, like, their powers kind of seem to be the same. One big hint for how Joy Boy was able to maximize his use of the Nika fruit, I think, might just be coming from Imu personally. Like, have you ever noticed that their fruits have a ton of powers just in common? And Oda really rubbed this one home probably the most when Imu fought Luffy and just threw these stretchy Snake Man-like punches that redirected themselves, just like Luffy's Python punches in Gear 4. This panel here, that's a textbook Luffy attack. Like, when you saw it, you also were like, wait, what's going on right now? But there have been a lot of other elements too here. Imu could change his size at will, much like how we've seen Luffy gigantify himself too. So what if Imu can create weapons from somewhere, kind of like Luffy does with the baseball bat, for example? He can use elements like fire. Luffy can do that too. Like, what if some of the things that we've only seen Imu do so far could have also belonged to Joy Boy and are therefore also accessible to Luffy as well? It's almost like Imu and Luffy are yin and yang, black and white, dark and light, right? I mean, very literally, they're drawn as black and white, a devil versus a god. So they do seem like two sides of the same coin with very similar power sets that Oda has been like pointing out, like, look at this, doesn't this kind of look like Luffy? You know what I mean? And Imu just power boosted his own Holy Knights by granting them Omen Halo, so will Luffy be capable of doing the same thing? Ever since Bonnie also went Gear 5 on Egghead, I've kind of speculated that the rest of the crew might be able to do this someday as well, because part of the Nika Fruit's true abilities might be to share its powers with others. You know, like, I mean, I don't want to go too much My Hero Academia with all for one and one for all, but it might be kind of like that with Imu and Luffy. Like, they kind of do a similar thing, but one takes abilities away and the other gives it to others. Who doesn't love a power of friendship moment in shonen? Alternatively, maybe if he pumps up the volume of the Drums of Liberation heartbeat, maybe it can also grant powers to those around him. Like, this could be something a little bit like the revolutionary Bello Betty's ability to rally people and increase their morale and strength and boost everything. Truly the ultimate bard of One Piece, right? Also, don't tell me you wouldn't see Oda turning Luffy into a literal speaker to like blast some beats and music from. That's something I would almost be shocked if it didn't happen. But while we're talking about the idea of rallying people, I do wonder if one of Luffy's strongest abilities might actually be tied to the essence of the Nika Fruit as well. Because an advanced form of what we just talked about could really play into Mihawk's most dangerous power in the world comment. Remember that one? When he remarked on Luffy's ability to turn anyone and everyone around them into allies, whether it's Whitebeard or Crocodile or former enemies. The fact that so many people, including people that absolutely hated Luffy, end up on Luffy's side helping him and smiling, right? Could actually be connected to an inherent power of the Nika Fruit and not just be like Luffy giga maxing out his like charisma or something. And if that's the case, and the power that like Mihawk talked about is an actual devil fruit power, that could help explain why Joy Boy had so many different nations fighting alongside him against Imu's alliance, because he literally would have the power to turn everyone into an ally. That would also be another great way that the Nika Fruit and the Devil's Fruit mirror one each other, right? Because Imu can use the power of Domi Reversi to force people onto his side, while the Nika Fruit could bring people to Luffy's side through empowerment and liberation and freeing them from their darkness or their shackles, whether they're literal or more metaphorical. You know, the thing that Luffy does with his entire crew and everywhere that he goes throughout his journey. So instead of turning them into demons, the Nika Fruit could literally bring out the best version of people, explaining why villains like Crocodile are suddenly risking their lives to save Luffy a few arcs after the defeats, taking someone like Robin, who's like in this dark hole and kind of like, feeling worthless, and turning him to like the sweetest, kindest, best girl in the story. As you know, Luffy literally is kind of this light of the sun god, freeing people from their darkness. And that could just be him as a person, but it might also just be the devil fruit and the essence of Nika inside of him, the fruit affecting Luffy's personality. I think there is a reason why Mihawk, of all people, who fights with a sword, the most physical of all powers and is the strongest swordsman, names this as the ultimate power that Luffy has and the scariest. I think it's Luffy's strongest power, and I kind of do like the idea that it might just be part of the entire Sun God packaging and why it makes this fruit so incredibly dangerous. But let's move on to something else, because of course there's also the power to conjure up objects. Imu could use his grimoire to summon objects or pull different weapons from his halo, and I don't know, like he's just pulling stuff from so many dimensions. It seems at this point I have no idea what's going on. But Luffy has just barely tapped into this type of power, even though we know that he can actually use it. Remember, we've seen him pull things like goggles or paint cans or a baseball bat out of thin air on Egghead Island. Like, I'm gonna assume that Joy Boy used that technique for probably way cooler stuff, potentially. My mind kind of right away goes to weapons, since that's what Imu is mostly using this for, and any fan of the channel knows how desperately I really want Luffy to get a big sword or something like Nika or like Joy Boy have always been depicted as with. But with Luffy's whole Toon Force wipe going on, I could also see him going Looney Tunes and just dropping pianos, safes, and anvils on people and squishing them that way, going to Imu and handing them a bouquet full of dynamite. If Bugs Bunny did it, it's pretty fair game for Luffy, like Oda has made that much clear. But also, if there is any power that I think that the Nika Fruit gave Joy Boy that would put him leagues and ways ahead of Luffy, something that Luffy hasn't displayed much at all so far, it's warping reality itself. Now, to be completely fair, Luffy has of course gone at least as far as, turning the landscape into rubber, but I do imagine that Joy Boy, with the full powers of the Nika Fruit, could also change the world itself into whatever shape he desired at max level. Again, what are the limits? We don't know. In fact, that might just be the explanation for why so much of the One Piece world is so weird in the first place, but that's a theory for another day. If the power of Nika is only limited by imagination, then its ultimate abilities might be able to manipulate oneself, the objects around you, and even the entire environment. Like, I'm kind of imagining a fight could play out almost like the Kaguya battle in Naruto, when she's constantly shifting dimensions on Team 7. Joy Boy may have used the environment itself as a weapon too when fighting, and combining that with full unlimited shapeshifting and Toon Force, it almost sounds like it should be enough to take on someone like Imu. In fact, it would probably make Imu look a bit like a joke if he actually had that power. But that also makes you wonder, was Joy Boy's usage of this power as silly and cartoonish as Luffy's is right now? I mean, signs kind of point to yes, because they are like seemingly more and more like they're practically the same person. Luffy is seen as the next Joy Boy by many. Imu is talking about how history is repeating itself. The Giants are taking the L for the same reason as last time. Nika and Nidhogg will just fall like Dozan, whoever that guy is. It's time again for a great cleansing, another flood, though we don't know if that's Imu's fault. Imu desires Vivi, likely to take the place of Lily. Whether this is all fate or destiny, or whether Imu is intentionally trying to recreate the Void Century, it does seem like the final war that played out 800 years ago is gonna happen in a very similar fashion once again. And while that era in the second world had Joy Boy, this one now has its own Nika Fruit user, Luffy. Obviously, one of the biggest moments in 1188 was that we finally saw a tiny portion of Joy Boy's unsilhouetted face, and kind of basically looks like the lower part of Luffy's face. Now, this of course shouldn't be a massive surprise. Emeth already mentioned how Luffy looks a lot like Joy Boy, and apparently that was not just the white hair. It seems like their resemblance is really uncanny, and that's kind of further emphasized by the fact that Joy Boy's voice actor was the first person to voice the role of Luffy in one of the OVAs. And with Joy Boy's status as the first pirate ever, the numerous allies that he had that are not allying with Luffy, practically everything we know about him tells us that this personality is super similar to Luffy too, and that means that Luffy, more than anyone else, should have the full potential to master the Nika Fruit to that same level, but he's just not there quite yet. Right now, Imo is straight up disappointed again in Luffy's weakness. When he saw Gear 5, he thought that he might have finally found a successor for his old rival, and it's almost like Imo knows these events are like supposed to happen again. He mentions to Loki actually that Elbaph Elbaph is suffering to defeat in order to save the children, just like it happened before during the Void Century. All of this has happened before, it seems, and they will happen again, and he's putting all the pieces in place to make it that way. And as I've mentioned a couple of times now, certain aspects of Imu to me almost seem not as like fully bad guy evil as we all thought. Like, you know what I mean? As though he believes that he is doing the right thing, that through domination, he's giving people a form of happiness. After all, it's becoming more and more clear that the two were once friends, or at least had a friendly type of relationship. I'm kind of imagining at this point that Imu probably didn't want Joy Boy to die, at least not at first, and that could explain why he got his hopes up when he saw someone who could become the next Joy Boy. But ultimately, at least in Imu's mind, Joy Boy dying is what had to happen. It was fate. It was a destiny that could not be broken, and now it's all happening again, and things are unfolding exactly as they're supposed to. Luffy feeling, even to Imu, kind of like a chosen one, like it's his destiny to be the next Joy Boy, and that's why in order to defeat Imu, Luffy will have to, of course, access the Sun God's ultimate full power, one that Joy Boy maybe himself never could, the perfect expression of freedom, overcoming fate itself and breaking the cycle of violence and like tyrannical rule that has very clearly existed in the One Piece world for many thousands of years. And I feel like it could be the case that that's exactly what Imu wants Luffy to actually do right now. That's why he's so disappointed, because he needs Joy Boy in order to win this time against some greater threat maybe. As for why I think that, well, you can check out why Imu might just be the worshipper of Joy Boy and a tragic villain like Kaido, who thought, you know, he would be the good guy by becoming the villain in this video. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Thanks to all of our Patreons. Again, link in the description below for that. And I will hopefully see you in the next video. Have a great remaining day.